the Prophet ﷺ mentioned a lot about the merits of giving. I'll just mention one hadith that is amazing. It's a hadith related in the Sahih of Muslim from Abu Hurairah. The Prophet ﷺ said, من نفس عن مؤمن كربة من كرب الدنيا نفس الله عنه كربة من كرب يوم القيامة. Whoever grants relief for a believer from a distress of this life, Allah will release for them a distress of the day of resurrection. Okay? Kurbatan, even one distress. Right? Some difficult life circumstance, whatever it is. And it's in the indefinite that whatever distress you relieve. بِمَا دِنْتَ تُدَانُ. And this is something that's a repeated theme in the Quran and the Sunnah, and you see this clearly in the biblical tradition and in past revelations. As you are, so shall you find. But it's not just as you are, so shall you find. We know from the final revelation that as you are, so shall Allah multiply for you. And that's part of the mercy of the final revelation. There's a promise of, you just do one thing, Allah will really, like, where do the two? It's not, the basis is not justice, it is mercy. You grant relief for one thing here, you'll have a relief for a distress of the day of resurrection, which has eternal consequences. And from that is through lending someone some money. But above and beyond that, the Prophet ﷺ continued and he said, وَمَنْ يَسَّرَ عَلَى مُعْسِرٍ يَسَّرَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. Whoever grants facilitation to one in difficulty, right? And here, to one in difficulty rather than distress. And mu'sir refers to difficulty specifically, but sort of generally, but al-i'sar refers particularly to financial difficulty, right? Man yassara ala mu'sir, whoever grants facilitation to one in difficulty in general, but particularly in financial difficulty. Allah grants them facilitation in this life and the next. And i'sar generally in the Arabic language this means like you have usr and yusr, like from Surah Alam Nashrah, difficulty and ease. But usr most particularly, because what's at the end of the day, how do we pursue our needs in this life? Through financial facilitation. We work, we earn, we have debts and obligations and commitments. Financial distress underlies so many of our other life distresses. So that's particularly consequential. Right? So it refers in general to all difficulty. You grant facilitation to one in difficulty, and from that facilitation is that if they owe you, if you grant them facilitation, or they owe another and you granted the means to relieve that difficulty. But the ways of it are many. From these texts and the overall ethos, some of the proper manners of giving alone, right? Of giving alone, right? One is to give for Allah, to see that the act of giving is a tremendous spiritual work. Right? And particularly, and it's a neglected sunnah, to lend someone who's in difficulty. And it's not a difficult thing to do because if, people, like you do it properly, you'll get it back. So if you do it properly, you'll get it back. You do it in writing, you record the transaction, you set terms, etc. You'll be getting it back. Right? So it's an easy way of giving, but you recognize the reward in it. And if you want to read further on it, if you open Riyadh al-Salihin, for example, the section on charity has also the great merits of giving a good loan, al-qard al-hasan. You have to recognize that this is an expression of caring and of practical and active caring and concern for others. So if you have savings and you have a younger brother who's going to university, for example, lend them the money rather than having to take an interest-bearing loan. and they can pay you back, for example. Right? So it's expression of practical caring within family, with friends. Someone's trying to start a business, and they don't necessarily have to ask you. Let's say there's a sister, she's thinking of starting a business, whatever. Say, be proactive. Say, okay, why don't we sit down? I can lend you the money to set up the website and set up to facilitate the start of the cost, and you can pay me back. Right? So it's an expression of practical caring and concern. It nurtures closeness of relations. And that's why it would be better than just giving the person the money, because you're giving your money. So in many cases, you have to establish that relationship. You don't just give the money, say, okay, start your company, but many of us have acquired life experience and so on. If you sit with the person, right, and you facilitate for them, that's why it's called a good loan, because you do want the money back, right? It helps fulfill collective obligations, right, of preservation of good, right, of economic empowerment, right, strengthening community and relationships. It's, besides expression of caring and concern, it's an expression of love and mercy. One of the things that's often neglected, and we don't ponder on the Quran, what's called ayatul shadi. We're in shadi season. It's slightly delayed this year because of Ramadan, but from Surah Al-Rum, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ, from His signs that He created for you spouses from amongst yourselves. But then He says, وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. From His signs is that He has created for you. جَعَلَ لَكُمْ. Who is you referring to here? All people. Spouses from amongst yourself, and He has placed between you love and mercy. He has placed between you love and mercy. Who is it referring to? It's not referring to the spouses. It's referring to all people. Right? Of course, the love and mercy among spouses is a particular expression of love and mercy, but وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُم, has created for you from amongst yourselves أزواجا, right? Spouses. And He has placed between you, it has said between them. Right? So love and mercy is something that Allah has placed between all people, potentially. But it is our acts that nurture that love and mercy, right? And the duty of ta'awun, of assisting one another, right? Which is a general call in the Quran. So these are some of the things that we should have intention of when we give a loan. Practically, just 5 ways of giving a loan that the ulama mentioned. One is to give to institutions. And this is something our parents' generation and those before us used to do a lot. How did masajid raise money? A lot of the funds raised would be, people would give their money, right, and they would forego. And part of why it's a good loan, because rather than accumulating, build your investments and so on, this is a spiritual investment. You lend 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 to an institution, and they pay you back gradually. And it's a good loan, it's good for you, because frankly, right now we should be doing a lot more of this, because the financial markets are crazy anyways. Japan issued bonds with negative yields, besides the fact that they're ribawi bonds, but negative yields. It's a crazy world out there. Give it to the masjid, likely going to remain, right? And this is one of the ways. Give to institutions to help build the institutions. Any institution of good. Giving as angel investing. One of the Prophet ﷺ described, one of the best mode of employment is to have your business, to have a business. Right? And as a community, and especially with the prevalent corporate culture, we should be looking a lot more in our own lives how we can start businesses that are pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that are economically empowering for ourselves, but that are means of good in society. So that our work counts as an act of good. But part of that, if you have some savings, if you have some money, even if it's a little, assist someone in starting a business. Right? Whether it be to loan them the money, and they repay you in a year or 2 or 3 or over a period of time, or invest in it. Of course, investing has distinct risks. You should, but giving is a form of angel investing. There is no material return on it because you just get back what you gave, but there's a spiritual investment there. Giving to those in debt. Someone is in debt, assist them in relieving their debts. So if you do have savings, first, of course, give yourself a loan. There's so many people who have savings, but they have credit card debt or this or that. Get out of riba. Give yourself some money from your own savings and then replenish them later. Right? But there's people who are in debt in your own family. Help them get out of riba. They used to say it's a fate worse than debt. Right? And fourth is giving through micro lending services. There's services out there that you can give small loans to those in developing countries who are trying to start their projects, etc. And like Kiva.com, etc. There's a number of these services. But also, we should be thinking, right, that why can't we set up community-based micro-lending services? Set up Qard Hasan service. I'm not aware of any good Muslim micro-lending services, interest-free, etc. People lend to a project, but also to bring the ethos of good giving. That you're giving, but also, you see, you have a pool of skills. That you have experience starting up a restaurant, you have experience starting up a consulting service, a law firm, a dentist. So you give a good loan, but also you share in your know-how, right, to help in the empowerment of our community. So the Al-Qard al-Hasan, and I'd encourage you to read much more on this amongst the places. Look at Riyadh al-Salihin. This is a great opportunity of tremendous good, keeping in mind that relieving distress from others and difficulty is a means for, as the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever facilitates for another a difficulty of this life, Allah grants them facilitation in this life and the next. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us that and far beyond from His bounty, and that He overlook our shortcomings and grant us closeness to Him. إِنَّهُ غَفُورٌ شَكُورٌ, for truly He is all forgiving and all recognizing. وَصَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَى سَيِّدِنَا وَنَبِينَا مُحَمَّدٍ وآله وصحبه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين.